Downsizing is something that may affect any of us. It may be a parent, it may be us. But here to tell us more about it is Barry Gordon from Gordon Estate Services. I'm so glad you came in today.
Well, thank you, Donna. I'm glad to be here.
And it's really good because I am in the process. So
Well,
I'm going to pick your brain about how to downsize, because this is more work than I think I had ever anticipated. So
it is a lot, and downsizing can be a really positive experience, frankly. It's something that, frankly, exists because we live long enough to do it now.
and that's a privilege, isn't it?
It is,
when
yeah.
you think
30
about
years
it.
ago, more people lived to the end of their days in their house that they'd been in for a long time. Because the death rate is so extended, because we live so much longer, many of us have outlive wherever we are for the long period, for that window of time after 50, let's say. And we come to a spot where the house is too big, it's got too many stairs, it's not the right fit, maybe I lost a spouse. And we're looking at a different venue, and whether it's an apartment or maybe a retirement community, but there's lots of things that you can downsize to. Some people downsize to condominiums, some to a smaller house. But downsizing in general can be a very positive thing, and it ought to be something that's driven at least in part by a recognition, a happy recognition that you're going to be in a spot that better suits where you are right now in your life.
And that's basically what I'm going from a 2-story to a 1-story is really what's happening. But I'm not necessarily downsizing. It may be the same size, it may even be bigger. Mm-hmm. Because my theory is that as I get older, I'll spend more time at home. So I want more space because I'm going to be spending more time there. But that's just me.
Yeah.
So
that's not really downsizing, but nonetheless, it's a move.
It's a move. It's a move to something more appropriate. Yeah.
So the key with downsizing is that what we I think commonly know is that moving is one of the most stressful times in our life. Yeah. And if you're 80 or you're 75 or you're 85 and you're moving and you've been in a place for 30 years and you've got all of that stuff that's accumulated, et cetera, and you haven't got the support networks around, your family live elsewhere, or maybe they're really super busy, they can't get involved in it, and you're looking at a multitude of options. Should I move to this? Should I move to that? Should I move to the other thing? How's my health going to evolve? It can be really overwhelming. So it's the stress of moving times 10. And you're doing it with less resources in a time that maybe you're not thinking as best as you were at one time. And so lots of reasons to downsize and lots of reasons to get some help.
So downsizing doesn't mean that you buy a smaller house and you cram everything that's in the big house into the smaller house, right?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you there are many people that have done that. You'd be surprised at the amount of houses that we go into to downsize somebody that they've been in this house for 15 years and they've got a room or a basement that's got 100 boxes in it because the last time they moved, they didn't know what to do with this stuff, and they just brought it with them. So it's all still there, and that's part of today's problem that exacerbates the situation that they're confronting. But it's all easily dealt with, frankly. So the good news is downsizing is an entirely doable thing. There are professionals that can help. In our case, our company helps somebody find where they're going, support the search for that, gets a floor plan from wherever it is, talks to them about the things that they'd like to take, draws it on the floor plan, pull the resources together to make it all happen, get them packed up, moved, unpacked, furniture placed, bed made, pictures hung, clothes in the closet, boxes gone, settled, and then back at the first house, we can support the flow of things to relatives. We can get some things to charity, food to the food bank, clothing to a Salvation Army, maybe some shredding of documents, prepare the rest of the things in the house for sale. We started an online auction company in 2010 that comes in and photographs, catalogs, sells everything in a nice, benign, safe, finite manner, and then get the house cleared and empty, ready for market, and then list the house and sell it. In our case, we bill all the costs out of the closing of the house, so it makes it an easy thing to cash flow as well for folks that are trying to deal with the finances of it at the same time.
Right. So you would also know what has value and what doesn't, because sometimes emotional attachment isn't it, but you might have something that you picked up at a yard sale many years ago. You've had it for 40 years and had no idea that it was worth what it's worth.
Sure.
You would know that.
Yeah, that's right. This morning, we got an email from one of our clients in Brampton, and they discovered a few paintings that were kind of tucked in a closet, and they pulled them out. And they're not worth a fortune, but they're good. They're decent, interesting Canadian paintings that have some value. So we come across that all the time. And again, we've sold goods for 60 years in our company. And in the last few years since we started the online auction company, we've probably sold 500,000 items. So we see lots of it, and I taught appraisal for 25 years. So so we identify things that have some value and talk about it with the family. And sometimes it's, oh, I didn't know that. If it's that valuable, but I want to keep it in the family, and that's fine. And if it's something that they want to sell, then we can look after that as well.
It would strike me that the hardest part is dealing with the people themselves who just cannot part with things. And I'm ruthless. I have no problem getting rid of all my junk, all this stuff. But other people are just horrified that I can part with everything.
Yeah.
Is that a really tough thing that you guys have to deal with? Like, you almost have to be a psychologist.
Well, I tend to think I got a PhD in psychology, human psychology, as it relates to our business anyway, just because of the many, many interactions over the years. You know, we've dealt with several thousand clients, and you see everything and you see it all. So certainly there are people that have attachment issues to things. And the worst of that is what you see on Hoarders. Matt Paxton is a friend of mine that started the Hoarders show. And he has a program now called Legacy List, actually, on PBS in the US. But some people have attachment issues, and that's fine. So you want to identify that if you're talking to people where someone in the family, because it may not be mom, it may be, you know, somebody else in the family, and see all the different arrangements. In general, one of the things that you need to do in serving people that are dealing with these issues is identify who their support network is, because it's great if they have a support network, but also identify if any of them have an agenda that's actually a little inconsistent with what the client's agenda is going to be, because you need to get that clarified as well. And that, you know, as you can imagine, in today's scenario or today's environment, there's lots of different living arrangements, and sometimes you got a relative that lived in the house for a while, and everybody thinks, okay, well, mom's going to move. The relative is going to find another place. That's great. But the relative, in the meantime, is thinking, hey, when mom gets out, that's awesome, because then I get the house to myself.
That's true, too.
Yeah.
Well, so what happens if, let's say, I live 5 hours away, and my mom lives here in Kingston, she passes away.
Yeah.
Okay, funeral over. Now we got the house. She's lived in it for 50 years, and wow, now what? So for me to drive back and forth is, because settling in a state is insane. What could you do for me?
So in that case, what we do is we have an easy estate envelope whereby you engage our service, and what we would do is secure the house, set up property checks so that it's being checked on a regular basis to make sure your insurance is intact, perform maintenance if you need snow or lawn maintenance so that it all stays nice and safe. We provide free appraisals for probate filing for the real estate, free appraisals for probate filing for the contents, and then manage that through until you've got probate. So with the appraisals, you can make probate application. Once you have probate in hand, you've got the final authority to go ahead and do things, and then we'll do whatever the will prescribes and whatever you ask us to do, which would often be shipping some things to relatives, organizing a sale of the extra stuff, sometimes identifying valuable things, prepare the property for sale, and then list and sell the house. And then again, we pull all our costs out of the closing to make it easy. And where that's important for an estate trustee is often an estate trustee has limited ability to get access to estate funds until they've got probate in hand.
Oh,
in a city like Kingston, probate might just take 4 weeks, 6 weeks. But in some places, like in the GTA, we've had examples where it's taken more than a year to get probate.
Really?
So we're maintaining the property through that period of time so that it all stays safe, because the fiduciary role of the estate trustee is to protect the assets. And so we want to help them do that. So we can collapse the physical asset envelope of estate management on behalf of the estate trustee. And project management is always free in our model, so it doesn't impact other things and other obligations that they have. So they can delegate these things to us safely and get a better job done than they could get done themselves at reasonable cost to the estate, because project management is free. So So that's something we do, and it's not only for you living in London and your mom passed away in Kingston. The opposite is also true.
Oh,
so
that's true. Yes,
sometimes
of
we have a
course.
client here. I had a call this morning from a client in Kingston whose family is down eastern Ontario, and we'll look after them.
Sounds, it's interesting. Of course, there's fees attached to it. I mean, you're not going to do this for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If people want to know more about all of that, how can they get a hold of you?
So you can get us at gogordons.com, and there are some web forms and things they can fill out and download some resources so they can start exploring on their own, find the information. I have a book that they can buy through Amazon,
Right.
or
Yeah,
they
see
can
this.
listen to it on Audible. It's called Avoiding Chaos.
Right.
And it's all around the 8 conversations that people need to have when they're dealing with these issues, so that you can kind of figure out what the landscape is.
And that's worth looking for, too.
yeah.
This has been so interesting. I'm so glad you came in today.
Thanks very much, Donna. It's been great to be here and help share some information with you.
Thank you.